Detective James Carter had been working at the downtown police station for 7 years. 7 long years. And in all that time, most people there couldn't remember having a real conversation with him. Not even once. He wasn't rude or anything like that. He just didn't talk much. Actually, he barely talked at all. When someone asked him a question, he'd answer with a quick nod or maybe just 1 or 2 words. That was it. Then he'd go right back to whatever he was doing, like the conversation never even happened. Every morning, James would walk into the station before almost everyone else. His desk was always the first one occupied. He'd sit down, open his files, and get straight to work. No coffee chat. No morning jokes with the guys, just work. And at night, when most officers were rushing out the door to get home to their families, James would still be there, typing up reports, going through evidence, double-checking everything. His desk looked like something out of a magazine. No messy papers. No coffee stains. No random notes stuck everywhere like everyone else had. Everything was organized perfectly. His pens were lined up. His files were color-coded. Even his coffee mug sat in the exact same spot every single day. It was almost weird how neat everything was. But here's the thing. James was actually really good at his job. Like really good. His reports never had mistakes. When he closed a case, it stayed closed. No loose ends. No questions left unanswered. The numbers didn't lie either. He solved more cases than most detectives who'd been there twice as long. He just did it all quietly without making any noise about it. The other officers at the station had their own theories about him. Some thought he was just too good for everyone else, like he thought he was better than them and didn't want to waste his time on small talk. Others figured he was just painfully shy and didn't know how to act around people. A few thought maybe he had some dark secret he was hiding. People always make up stories when they don't understand someone, right? After a while, everyone just stopped trying. In the beginning, when James first joined, people would invite him out for drinks after shift.
Hey, James, we're heading to Murphy's Bar. You coming?
He'd shake his head no, give a small smile, and that would be that. They tried inviting him to birthday parties, retirement celebrations, even the annual police picnic. Same response every time. Eventually, the invitation stopped coming. It wasn't mean or anything. People just figured he wanted to be left alone, so they left him alone. Captain Williams was different, though. She'd been running the station for 12 years and had seen all types of officers come and go. Something about James caught her attention. She couldn't explain it exactly, but she felt like there was more to him than what everyone else saw. Like he was hiding something, but not in a bad way. More like he was protecting something. She'd watch him sometimes from her office window. The way he worked. The way he focused. The way his eyes would sometimes drift off like he was thinking about something far away. Then the robberies started. 5 convenience stores hit in 3 weeks. All of them in the same general area of the city. Same pattern every time. Guy comes in right before closing, wearing a mask, waves a gun around, takes the cash, and disappears. Nobody hurt yet, but it was only a matter of time before something went wrong. These things always escalated. The captain needed someone sharp on this. Someone detail-oriented who wouldn't miss anything. When she asked for volunteers to lead the investigation, most hands stayed down. It was a lot of work for what might turn out to be some desperate kid making stupid choices. But then James raised his hand. Quietly, of course. No announcement. Just his hand going up while he kept staring at the file in front of him. Captain Williams paired him with Detective Lisa Wong. Now Lisa was the complete opposite of James. She talked. A lot about everything. Cases, her kids, her husband's terrible cooking, the weather, you name it. She'd been with the department for 15 years and knew everyone's business. If you wanted to know what was happening in the station, you asked Lisa. She was also really good at her job, which is why she'd lasted so long. When Lisa found out she was partnering with James, she wasn't exactly thrilled. She'd tried talking to him before at office parties and got nowhere. Working a case with someone who wouldn't communicate sounded like a nightmare. How were they supposed to work together if he wouldn't even talk? She complained to the captain, but Williams just smiled and said, "Give it a chance. You might be surprised." On their first day working together, Lisa tried to break the ice. She asked James about his weekend. He said fine. She asked if he had any family in the city. He said no. She asked what he thought about the robberies. He said, "We should start with the surveillance footage." That was it. 3 answers. Probably 10 words total. Lisa sighed and thought this was going to be the longest investigation of her life. They spent the first few days going through security camera footage, interviewing store owners, and checking police reports from similar crimes in other districts. James took notes constantly. His handwriting was neat, just like his desk. He noticed things too, small details that Lisa missed. The way the robber held the gun, the slight limp in his left leg, the fact that he always hit stores near bus stops. James was seeing patterns, connecting dots, but he kept it all to himself. Lisa had to practically pull information out of him. But then something happened that changed everything. Something that would crack open the mystery of who James Carter really was. And it all started when they drove into the neighborhood where the fourth robbery took place. A neighborhood that James knew better than anyone could have guessed. A neighborhood that held the secrets to why he'd built such high walls around himself. The quiet officer was about to show a side of himself that no one at the station had ever seen before. And once that door opened, there would be no closing it again. The neighborhood looked rough. Not dangerous exactly, but worn down, like life had been hard on it for too long. Paint peeling off houses, chain-link fences with rust spots, corner stores with bars on the windows. Lisa had been to places like this plenty of times in her career, but she always came as an outsider. Someone just passing through to ask questions and leave. James, though. James was different the moment they pulled onto Martinez Street. Lisa noticed it right away. His shoulders relaxed. His jaw unclenched. He even let out a small breath like he'd been holding it in without realizing. She glanced at him, confused, but didn't say anything yet. They parked near the fourth robbery location and got out. The plan was to canvass the area, talk to anyone who might have seen something that night. Standard procedure. Lisa grabbed her notebook and started walking toward the store, but James wasn't following. She turned around and saw him standing on the sidewalk, looking at an old apartment building across the street. "Just staring at it. You coming?" she called out. He nodded slowly, but his eyes stayed on that building for another few seconds. Like he was seeing ghosts or memories or something. Then he finally moved. They were halfway down the block when it happened. An elderly woman sitting on her front porch suddenly stood up. She squinted at them, one hand shading her eyes from the sun. Then her whole face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Jimmy? Jimmy Carter? Is that you?" Lisa froze. Jimmy? Nobody called him Jimmy. She'd never heard anyone call him anything except James or Detective Carter. She looked at her partner, expecting him to give his usual polite nod and keep walking. But that's not what happened. Not even close. James smiled. Like really smiled. Not the tight little smile he'd give when someone said good morning at the station. This was different, genuine, warm. His whole face changed. He actually looked happy. "Mrs. Rodriguez," he said, walking straight up to the porch. His voice was different too, softer, full of actual emotion. The old woman came down the steps faster than Lisa would have thought possible for someone her age. She grabbed James by both arms and started talking rapidly in Spanish. "And here's the crazy part," James answered her back. In perfect Spanish. Fluent, natural Spanish like he'd been speaking it his whole life. Lisa just stood there with her mouth half open. In 3 days of working together, she'd gotten maybe 30 words out of this guy. Now he was having a full conversation, laughing, asking questions, looking like a completely different person. What was happening? They talked for almost 20 minutes. Mrs. Rodriguez kept patting James on the cheek and shaking her head like she couldn't believe he was standing there. She asked about his mother, his sister, whether he was eating enough, all the things grandmothers ask. James answered everything patiently, his whole body language transformed. Open, relaxed, human. Finally, Lisa had to interrupt. James, we should probably— Oh, yes, sorry." He turned back to Mrs. Rodriguez and explained they were investigating the robbery. Immediately, the old woman's expression got serious. She glanced around like she was checking if anyone was listening, then leaned in closer. She'd seen something. The night of the robbery, she couldn't sleep. Bad arthritis, she explained. So she was sitting by her window around 11, and she saw a man limping down the street, not the direction most people would come from if they lived in the neighborhood. He had a backpack. He kept looking over his shoulder. She thought it was strange, but didn't think much of it until she heard about the robbery the next day. James asked her detailed questions. What did the man look like? How bad was the limp? Which direction did he go after? Mrs. Rodriguez answered everything, giving them information nobody else had mentioned. This was good, real good. the kind of witness statement that could break a case open. Before they left, Mrs. Rodriguez hugged James tight. "You take care of yourself, Jimmy, and come visit sometime. Not just for work." James promised he would, and Lisa could tell he actually meant it. As they walked back to the car, Lisa couldn't hold it in anymore. "Okay, what was that?" "What was what?" James asked, but there was something in his voice, like he knew exactly what she meant. "That? You just had a 20-minute conversation. In Spanish." "You smiled. You hugged someone. Who are you and what did you do with my partner?" James got quiet again. For a second, Lisa thought he was going to shut down like usual, but then he sighed. "I grew up here. This neighborhood. That apartment building I was looking at? That's where I lived until I was 18. Lisa stopped walking. "You grew up here? In this neighborhood?" "Yeah, but nobody at the station knows that. I know they got in the car, but James didn't start it right away. They just sat there." Finally, Lisa said, "Why didn't you ever mention it?" James gripped the steering wheel. "Because people make assumptions. They hear you grew up in a place like this, and suddenly they think they know your whole story. They either feel sorry for you or they don't trust you. Sometimes both." "That's not fair," Lisa said. "Maybe not. But it happens." He started the car. "Can we just work the case?" But that wasn't the end of it. Over the next few days, Lisa watched James become a different person every time they came back to the neighborhood. He knew the owner of the corner grocery store, the guy who ran the barber shop, the woman at the laundromat. They all knew him. They all lit up when they saw him, and every single one of them had information to share. The teenagers hanging out by the basketball court. James walked right up to them like it was nothing. Started talking about the game they were playing, asked about school, then casually mentioned they were looking for information about the robberies. The kids who would normally never talk to cops started volunteering details. They'd noticed things. A car that didn't belong, someone asking weird questions at the bodega. James had an entire network here. People who trusted him. People who knew him as Jimmy, not Detective Carter. And he'd never said a word about it to anyone at the station. One afternoon, they stopped at a small restaurant to grab lunch. The owner, an older man named Mr. Chen, refused to let them pay. "Jimmy's money is no good here," he said firmly. "Not after what you did for my son." Lisa waited until they were eating to ask, "What did you do for his son?" James shrugged. "Helped him apply to college. Wrote a recommendation letter. It wasn't a big deal, but his face said it was a big deal. That it meant something. That all of this meant something." Lisa was starting to understand. The quiet officer everyone thought they knew, he wasn't hiding because he didn't care. He was hiding because he cared too much. Because this neighborhood, these people, they were his people. And somehow he'd been living two completely separate lives. The closed-off detective at work and Jimmy, the kid from Martinez Street who never really left. The question was, why keep them separate? What was James so afraid of? Lisa was about to find out, and the answer would change everything. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning. Lisa walked into the station and knew something was wrong immediately. The energy felt different, tense. Officers were huddled together, talking in low voices. Captain Williams stood by the coffee machine with her phone pressed to her ear, her face grave. "What's going on?" Lisa asked one of the other detectives. "Fifth robbery. Last night. But this time someone got hurt. Kid who works at the store. Got shot." Lisa's stomach dropped. He's alive? In surgery. But it's bad." She looked around for James. His desk was empty. That was weird. He was always here early. Always. She checked the parking lot. His car was there. So where was he? She found him 20 minutes later in his car, just sitting there. The engine wasn't running. He wasn't on his phone. He was just staring straight ahead at nothing, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles had gone white. Lisa knocked on the window. He didn't move. She knocked again, harder this time. Finally, he turned his head. The look on his face made her chest tight. She'd never seen him like this. His eyes were red. His jaw was clenched. He looked like he was barely holding himself together. She opened the passenger door and got in. They sat in silence for a minute. Then 2 minutes. Finally, she said, "James, talk to me." "I know him." His voice came out rough, like each word hurt. "The kid who got shot. His name is Danny Martinez. From the neighborhood?" James nodded slowly. "His brother was my best friend." Growing up, his name was Carlos. We did everything together. Basketball, school, everything. He stopped, swallowing hard. Carlos died 10 years ago. Gang violence. Wrong place, wrong time. He was just walking home from work. Lisa didn't know what to say. She just listened. Danny was 9 years old when it happened. I promised Carlos before. I promised I'd look out for him. Make sure he stayed on the right path. Didn't end up like... He couldn't finish the sentence. Danny's a good kid. Works 2 jobs. Taking care of his mom. Saving money for community college. He doesn't deserve this. None of this is your fault, Lisa said quietly. James laughed, but there was no humor in it. Isn't it? I became a cop because of Carlos. Because I thought I could make a difference. Protect people. But what good am I? I couldn't save Carlos. Now Danny's in the hospital with a bullet in his chest and I'm sitting here doing nothing. You're working the case. We're going to catch whoever did this. It's not enough. He finally looked at her. You know what the worst part is? I've been keeping my distance. From everyone at the station. From my old neighborhood. From both worlds. I thought if I kept everything separate, I could do my job better. Be professional. But all I did was isolate myself. I'm not helping anyone. Lisa chose her words carefully. Why did you feel like you had to keep everything separate? James was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I didn't think I belonged. At the station. With all of you. What, James, you're one of the best detectives we have. That's not what I mean. He rubbed his face with both hands. I grew up poor, Lisa, really poor. Sometimes we didn't have enough food. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep our apartment. I wore the same shoes for 2 years because we couldn't afford new ones. I saw things kids shouldn't see. Violence, drugs, people I cared about making terrible choices because they felt like they had no other options. He paused, collecting himself. When I got into the police academy, I thought I'd finally made it out. But then I got to the station, and everyone else came from such different backgrounds, normal families, college educations. They'd talk about their childhoods, and I had nothing to add. How could I tell them about growing up the way I did? They wouldn't understand. They'd either pity me or think I couldn't do the job properly because of where I came from. So you just stopped talking, Lisa said. It was easier, safer. I could do my job, solve cases, and nobody would look too closely at who I really was. He let out a shaky breath. But Carlos used to tell me something. He'd say, Jimmy, you can't help people if you're not willing to let them know you. I didn't understand what he meant back then. I think I'm starting to now. Lisa felt a lump in her throat. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry that you felt like you couldn't be yourself. Sorry that we made you feel that way even if we didn't mean to. It wasn't your fault, maybe not. But I could have tried harder. We all could have. She turned in her seat to face him fully. You want to know something? I grew up feeling like I didn't belong either. I was one of 3 women in my academy class. My first 5 years on the force, half the guys treated me like I was there to take notes and look pretty. The other half acted like I had to prove myself every single day. I had to work twice as hard just to be taken half as seriously. James looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. I'm not saying I know exactly what you went through, Lisa continued. But I know what it's like to feel like an outsider. To build walls to protect yourself. To keep parts of yourself hidden because you're scared of what people will think. She reached over and squeezed his shoulder. But here's what I learned. Those walls, they don't just keep people out, they keep you trapped too. They sat there for another minute. Then James straightened up. Something had shifted in his eyes. The despair was still there, but now there was something else too. Determination. Purpose. Danny's going to make it, he said, like he was making a promise to the universe. And we're going to catch the person who did this. But we're not doing it my old way. No more keeping everything separate, no more hiding. What are you saying? I'm saying I need help. Real help. I can't do this alone anymore. He pulled out his phone. I know people in the neighborhood. People who see things, hear things. People who would never talk to a cop normally, but they trust me. And you know the station, the resources, the other officers. If we bring both worlds together, really work as a team, we can end this. Lisa smiled. Now you're talking. What do you need? First, I need to see Danny. Make sure he's okay. Then we need to organize a real community meeting, get everyone involved, the neighborhood, the station, everyone. He started the engine. And Lisa? Thank you. For listening. For not judging. For giving me a chance to explain. That's what partners do, she said simply. As they drove to the hospital, James felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just hope that they'd catch the robber, but hope that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to choose between the two parts of himself anymore. Maybe he could be both Jimmy from Martinez Street and Detective James Carter. Maybe being both was actually his biggest strength, not his biggest weakness. Danny was going to survive. The doctor said he was lucky. The bullet missed his heart by inches. When James walked into the recovery room and saw Danny's mother sitting by the bedside crying, he didn't hesitate. He went straight to her and pulled her into a hug. She held on to him like he was family, because in a way, he was. And for the first time in 7 years, James felt like he was finally becoming the person and the officer he was meant to be all along. The community meeting happened 3 days later in the basement of St. Mary's Church. James had suggested it, and Lisa had helped make it happen. Word spread fast through the neighborhood. By 7 o'clock, the room was packed. Folding chairs filled every available space. People stood along the walls. Old folks, young parents, teenagers, shop owners. Everyone showed up. The station sent 5 officers, including Captain Williams. When they walked in wearing their uniforms, the room got quiet. Uncomfortable. People, in neighborhoods like this, didn't always trust the police. Too many bad experiences. Too many times they'd been ignored or worse. James stood at the front of the room. His heart was pounding. This was it. No more hiding. No more keeping his 2 lives separate. He looked at all the familiar faces staring back at him. Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Chen, kids he'd helped with homework, people who'd known him since he was Danny's age. Then he looked at Captain Williams and the other officers, his colleagues, people he'd worked with for 7 years but never really let in. He took a deep breath and started talking. Most of you know me as Jimmy. Some of you know me as Detective Carter. Tonight I need to be both. His voice was steady, but Lisa could see his hands shaking slightly. I grew up on Martinez Street. This neighborhood raised me. These streets taught me everything I know about loyalty, about community, about looking out for each other. He paused, making eye contact with people around the room. I became a police officer because I lost someone I loved to violence. I thought if I could wear this badge, I could protect people. Stop what happened to my friend from happening to anyone else. But somewhere along the way, I forgot something important. I forgot that real change doesn't come from just one person working alone. It comes from all of us working together. An older man in the back raised his hand. Why should we trust the police? Every time something happens here, cops show up, ask questions, then disappear. Nothing changes. Fair question. James nodded. You're right. And I'm sorry. I've been part of that problem. I'd come here for work, gather information, then go back to the station like this place didn't matter. Like you were just witnesses and victims instead of my neighbors. My family. That was wrong. Captain Williams stepped forward. James hadn't told her he was going to do this, but she understood what he was trying to do. I'm Captain Williams. I run the station downtown. And I'll be honest with you. We haven't done enough. We've treated neighborhoods like this as problems to solve instead of communities to partner with. That needs to change. But change requires trust on both sides. A young woman spoke up. My cousin got arrested last year for something he didn't do. Spent 2 nights in jail before they figured out it was someone else. Nobody apologized, nobody cared that he lost his job because of it. More voices joined in. Story after story of feeling dismissed, profiled, ignored. James let them talk, let them vent. These were things that needed to be said. Things that had been building up for years. When the room finally got quiet again, James spoke. I hear you, all of you, and you're right to be angry. But Danny Martinez is lying in a hospital bed right now because someone is terrorizing our neighborhood. This isn't just a police problem. It's not just a community problem. It's our problem. Together. Lisa stood up next to him. We need your help, not as informants, as partners. You see things we don't see. You know things we don't know. And honestly, you care about this place more than any outsider ever could. Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. People started sharing information, not because they were being interrogated, but because they wanted to help. A barber mentioned a customer who'd come in with a lot of cash, acting nervous. A bus driver remembered a man matching the robber's description getting off at the same stop after each incident. A teenager admitted he'd seen someone stashing a backpack behind a dumpster, but had been too scared to tell anyone. James and Lisa took notes. So did the other officers. But more importantly, they listened, really listened. Not as cops interrogating witnesses, but as people trying to understand. Captain Williams promised to assign an officer to do regular community walks. Not patrols, walks, getting to know people, building relationships. She also committed to creating a direct line for the neighborhood to report concerns without fear of retaliation or being ignored. As the meeting wrapped up, Mr. Chen approached James. You did good tonight, Jimmy. Carlos would be proud. Those words hit James harder than he expected. He had to look away for a second to compose himself. Over the next 2 days, James and Lisa worked nonstop. They combined everything from the meeting with their existing evidence. The pieces were coming together. The robberies all happened near the same bus route. The suspect had a limp. He always hit stores that closed late, and according to multiple witnesses, he seemed desperate but not violent until the last robbery. Then they got a break. A woman from the meeting called. Her brother had been laid off from his factory job 6 months ago. He'd been struggling. His daughter was sick, needed expensive medicine. The woman had noticed him acting strange lately, jumpy, secretive. And he had a bad knee from an old injury, made him limp when he walked. I don't want to believe it's him, she said, her voice breaking. But I can't stop thinking about it. If it is him, he needs help, not just jail. James got the brother's name and address. They ran a background check. No criminal record. Worked at the same factory for 12 years before the layoffs. Wife passed away 3 years ago, raising a 7-year-old daughter alone. Medical bills piling up. This wasn't some career criminal. This was a father backed into a corner, making terrible choices out of desperation. We need to be careful how we handle this, James said to Lisa. If we go in aggressive, someone could get hurt, including him. Lisa agreed. What are you thinking? I want to try to talk to him first. No raid. No SWAT team, just me. James, he's armed. He shot Danny. I know. But I don't think he wanted to. I think he panicked. I think he's scared and desperate and doesn't see any other way out. James looked at the man's file again. At his picture, he looked tired, defeated. I've seen that look before, on people in my neighborhood who felt like the world had given up on them. Sometimes all they need is for someone to see them as human, to give them a chance to do the right thing. Captain Williams was hesitant when they brought her the plan, but she trusted James. You get one shot at this, literally one. If he doesn't surrender peacefully, we go in hard. They tracked the man to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the neighborhood, the same kind of place James used to hang out as a kid when he needed to think, when he needed to escape. James put on his vest, checked his weapon, but he had no intention of using it. He was going in to talk, to listen, to give this man a chance to end things without more violence. Lisa grabbed his arm before he went in. Be careful, please. I will. But this is what I should have been doing all along. Not just catching criminals, helping people before they become criminals. Or at least trying. He walked toward the warehouse alone, his hands visible, his weapon holstered. His heart was racing, but his mind was clear. This was who he was meant to be. Not the silent detective hiding behind walls. Not the neighborhood kid pretending his past didn't matter. But someone who understood both worlds and could bridge the gap between them, someone who could see that sometimes the line between victim and criminal was thinner than anyone wanted to admit. Inside that warehouse, a desperate man was waiting, and James was about to find out if his words were enough to end this without anyone else getting hurt. The warehouse was dark inside. Dusty beams of light came through broken windows high up on the walls. James could hear his own footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. Every instinct told him to draw his weapon, to protect himself, but he kept his hands visible, open, non-threatening. "My name is James Carter," he called out. His voice bounced off the empty walls. "I'm a police officer, but I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk." Silence. Then a voice from somewhere in the shadows. "Stay back, I mean it. I don't want to hurt anyone else, but I will if I have to." The man sounded terrified. His voice was shaking. This wasn't a hardened criminal. This was someone at the end of their rope. "I know you don't want to hurt anyone," James said calmly, taking slow steps forward. "What happened with Danny? That wasn't you. You panicked. I get it. You don't know anything about me," the voice cracked. "You don't know what it's like." James stopped walking. "You're right. I don't know your exact situation, but I know what it's like to feel desperate, to feel like the whole world has turned its back on you and you're completely alone." He could see a shape now, huddled behind some old machinery. A man sitting on the ground, his back against the wall. Even in the dim light, James could see he was holding a gun. "I grew up not far from here," James continued, keeping his voice steady and calm. "My mom worked 3 jobs just so we could eat. Some nights we didn't eat. I watched people I cared about make terrible choices because they felt trapped, because they couldn't see any other way out." He took another small step. "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here because I understand." "No, you don't." The man's voice was thick with emotion. "My daughter, she's 7 years old. She has a condition. Needs medication that costs hundreds of dollars every month. I lost my job. Lost our insurance. I applied everywhere. Everywhere. Nobody's hiring. Nobody cares." He let out a sob. "What was I supposed to do? Let her suffer? Watch her get worse because I can't afford to keep her alive?" James felt his chest tighten. This man wasn't evil. He was a father trying to save his child the only way he thought he could. "What's your daughter's name?" "Sophia." "Sophia's lucky to have a dad who loves her that much. Who'd do anything for her. Then why are you here? Why can't you just leave me alone?" The desperation in his voice was heartbreaking. "I just need a little more money. Just enough to get through the next few months. Then I'll figure something else out." "But you know it doesn't work like that," James said gently. "Danny's in the hospital because of what happened. A good kid working 2 jobs to help his family, just like you were trying to help yours. This path you're on, it doesn't end well. Not for you. Not for Sophia. So what am I supposed to do?" The man's voice rose. "Tell me, what would you do if it was your kid? If you had no money, no options, no help from anyone?" James thought about Carlos, about Danny, about all the people in his neighborhood who'd been failed by a system that was supposed to protect them. "I'd be angry, scared, desperate, just like you are now. But here's what I've learned. The system is broken. It fails people like you every single day, but adding more violence, more pain, that doesn't fix it. That just creates more broken families, more kids growing up without parents." He took another step closer. He could see the man's face now. Tears streaming down his cheeks, the gun shaking in his hands. "If you get arrested today, what happens to Sophia?" James asked. "Who takes care of her? Who makes sure she gets her medication?" The man's resolve seemed to crumble. "I don't know. I don't know anymore. I thought I could fix this. I thought I could be strong enough. But I shot that kid. Oh God, I shot someone's son." His whole body was shaking now. "I didn't mean to. The gun just went off. I was so scared and everything happened so fast." "Danny's going to be okay," James said. "He's recovering. But you need to let me help you now. Not as a cop arresting a criminal, as someone who wants to make sure Sophia doesn't lose her dad. How can you help? I robbed 5 stores. I shot someone. I'm going to prison. Maybe. Probably. But there's a difference between how this ends. You can come out of this alive. You can eventually be there for your daughter again. Or this can end with more violence. More tragedy. More families destroyed." James held out his hand. "Let me help you do the right thing, please." The warehouse was quiet except for the sound of the man crying. Long, painful sobs of someone who'd been holding everything in for too long. The gun lowered slightly. Then a bit more. "What about Sophia? What happens to her while I'm in jail? I'll make sure she's taken care of. I promise you." There are programs, resources, people who can help. She won't be alone. James took another step. He was close enough now that he could almost reach the man. But I need you to trust me. Put the gun down. Let's end this the right way. Time seemed to stretch. Every second felt like an hour. Then slowly, so slowly, the man set the gun on the ground and pushed it away. He put his face in his hands and just broke down completely. James moved forward quickly, securing the weapon. Then he did something that surprised everyone listening on the radio outside. He sat down next to the man, not standing over him like a cop making an arrest, but next to him like a person offering comfort to another human being in pain. "You did the right thing," James said quietly. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did." Outside, Lisa led the team in. They took the man into custody, but there was no aggression, no excessive force, just officers doing their job with humanity and respect. The news called it a successful arrest. Captain Williams called it textbook negotiation. But James knew it was something more than that. It was what happened when you stopped seeing people as just criminals or victims or cases to close, when you saw them as human beings. Complex, flawed, desperate human beings trying to survive in a world that didn't make it easy. Danny was released from the hospital 2 weeks later. James visited him the day he came home. They talked about Carlos, about second chances, about how sometimes the people who hurt us are hurting too, and that doesn't make it okay, but it makes it human. At the station, things changed, not overnight, but gradually. James started eating lunch with the other officers, sharing stories, talking about his work in the community. Captain Williams created a new position, Community Liaison Officer. She offered it to James. He accepted. The quiet officer wasn't so quiet anymore. He organized youth programs, set up meetings between police and community members, created a fund to help families in crisis before desperation led them down dark paths. He worked with social services to find help for Sophia and her father. Lisa became more than his partner. She became his friend, his advocate. She helped him understand that his past wasn't something to hide. It was his greatest strength, the thing that made him able to connect with people others had written off. The man who'd committed the robberies got 5 years. Not because James went easy on him, but because the prosecutor understood the context, the desperation, the lack of resources that had pushed him to that point. He'd serve his time, but he'd also get help, counseling, job training, a chance to rebuild his life for his daughter. And Sophia? The community rallied around her. Mrs. Rodriguez coordinated a fundraiser. Mr. Chen donated. Neighbors pitched in. She got her medication. She stayed with her aunt, who promised her dad would come home someday. That he'd made a mistake, but mistakes didn't define a person forever. 6 months after that day in the warehouse, James stood in front of a room full of new police recruits. Captain Williams had asked him to speak, to tell them about community policing, about building trust, about being more than just a badge. He told them about growing up poor, about losing Carlos, about spending 7 years hiding who he was because he thought he had to choose between being a cop and being himself. He told them about Danny, about the desperate father, about learning that real strength wasn't about keeping walls up. It was about being brave enough to tear them down. "You don't have to be perfect," he said to those young faces staring back at him. "You don't have to have all the answers. But you do have to be human. You have to be willing to see the people you're serving as people, not just problems. And you have to be willing to let them see you as human too." After his speech, a young recruit approached him nervously. "Detective Carter, I just wanted to say thank you. I grew up in a neighborhood like yours. I almost didn't apply to the academy because I thought I wouldn't fit in. But hearing your story, it gives me hope that I can make a difference." James smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You will. Just remember to be yourself. All of yourself. That's where the real power is." Walking out of the academy that day, James felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. He wasn't the quiet officer anymore. He wasn't hiding Jimmy behind Detective Carter. He was both. Fully. Completely. And he was finally making the difference he'd always dreamed of making. Not by being perfect. Not by keeping everyone at a distance. But by being brave enough to show his true side. All of it, the pain and the strength. The past and the present. The cop and the kid from Martinez Street who never really left. That was the real story. The one that mattered. Not about a quiet officer, but about a human being who learned that the truest version of himself was also the strongest.